Okay, so today we wanted to talk about Hannah's journey from elementary school years to college, and then from college to where are you right now?
Medical school,
Yeah.
first year.
Right. So we kind of wanted to share our story, not like to share this is how you get into medical school, but more of this is our story and mostly Hannah's story about how she got into medical school. And can you kind of recollect your early years of homeschooling in general?
I think you might have a better memory of like the beginning years, but I think I can remember like glimpses of homeschooling when we lived in Gilroy, and when we were doing homeschooling almost exclusively at home and just doing like workbooks. And I mostly remember Saxon math.
Saxon math, yeah.
Because that was the most, I guess maybe for me, the hardest part of homeschooling was math at that time. And then I just remember doing school with Opa and also Joshua.
Opa meaning?
Matthew.
Matthew's the older brother. So in Korean we say Opa is older brother.
Yeah.
So you all did Saxon math, but then I know that I started on several other, and which I'm going to make a separate video on math that we used as a family and what worked for our family, and kind of what if someone were to come up to you and say, so how was your homeschool experience? Because I think that's the most common question that people ask, right? When you go to college, either from your college professors or friends or church people that you meet, they always ask, so how was your homeschool experience? What would you say to sum it up?
I think the general response that I give them is that I think I'm in general, I'm very grateful that I was homeschooled, and I probably wouldn't have chosen it for myself at the time. And I just remember being pretty resistant to the idea of being homeschooled again in high school. And mainly because I felt like I was missing out on basically what I had already planned for my public school year. But then I think in hindsight, I think it was the best path for me. And probably just because I liked the flexibility of being able to kind of pick and choose what I wanted to do, and also spend more time doing the subjects and opportunities that I wanted to pursue like long term. So but I think even like academics aside, I think just the fact that I'm able to spend a majority of my time like just around family, I might not be interacting with them all day, but just being able to be around them all the time. And like I took a lot of classes with Opa in high school, and so I think just carrying on into college and beyond, we just still have a relationship that's very natural, and it feels like we already laid down the foundation of our relationship in when we were doing homeschooling together.
As a homeschooler, you naturally just from the beginning you're doing classes together. So when you're in middle school, high school, and even putting you guys into community college, I didn't think twice about they're siblings so they should take separate classes, or they're siblings so they should take same classes. It wasn't just one or the other. It was more of like, they both would benefit from just taking the class together. And then as a student, I don't know if you get these questions too, but they say, how did your interest in the sciences begin? Because basically, I think from my recollection, your science interest peaked like in 10th grade when you took that chemistry class. But what's your
Was
take?
Was that the homeschool one? Okay. I think that's probably when it did start, like my interest in science, or more chemistry in specific. Probably because that was the first chance I got to not just like study a science, because we've done like science curriculum before this, but this was the first time that we were able to do it in a lab, and this was through the co-op. And so just being able to do like experiments and see whatever we were learning in the textbook in like actual life was really interesting to me. and it felt like really new because it was the first time that in our homeschool experience that we had done, I mean, I guess we had done like semi-lab stuff with like Apologia with CC, but it was nothing in comparison to the chemistry lab that we did. So I think that initially made me curious about like more science and more chemistry. Yeah, I think, I mean, to sum it up, probably that homeschool co-op lab is what like sparked my interest and made me, I guess, open to the idea of taking more classes, or at least it being an option for something I might be interested in pursuing even in college. And then taking community classes after that, I think just reaffirmed that it was something that I could do long term and I could also handle. Because I think half of it is like you might be interested in it, but can you actually like, are you good at keeping up and also like absorbing the information and understanding it? And thankfully it was both. So I think I just felt comfortable then just going on from there, like to take the next chemistry course, and then even to take physics. And I think also like what had a impact on me was the professors at the community college were very encouraging, and for the most part, kind of like even at Vanderbilt, the professors like want you to come to office hours, and I think I was like one of the only students who showed up to office hours, and so that made it even more like exciting for them, and as an effect exciting for me because they wanted me to be there and I also wanted to be there, and so they kind of just pushed me even more to go to pursue more, like take more classes, and also they were really excited when I told them like, oh, I want to major in chemistry, or I might be interested in engineering. Then they would, you know, try to give me as much information as they could. Pretty smooth transition as far as like the structure of classes, because it was pretty much the same, but of course I think like the rigor and also the topics that we were studying were different. So that's the only adjustment I had to do, which I mean it's still an adjustment, but it was made easier by having gone to community college in the first place.
What college did you go to, so you can kind of share with them?
So I went to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and majored in biomedical engineering. Although when I first applied and also started attending, I was a chemistry major. And then I think I think even before the first day of school, I kind of had an inkling of an idea that I might want to transfer to biomedical engineering, just because I kind of foresaw that I might be interested in going into medicine. And so I thought, oh, biomedical engineering is a perfect combination of like science, engineering, which is more like hands-on, which is what I liked, and also having like the medical application of all of that. And it was nice because when I was looking at the 4-year curriculum or the credits that you had to take to graduate, a lot of them overlapped with the pre-med requirements. And so I only had to take like maybe a couple more courses on top to fulfill all of the pre-med requirements. So for me, it felt like a plus, because say that I didn't want to go into medicine, like I could still take that major and go into industry or go and get a PhD, but it just seemed like the most versatile and fitting for what my interests were.
Let me ask the question. Your advice to college students in general, what would you tell yourself? You're present now, so your past self.
I could be telling myself or other students that are in that same place.
Exactly.
Well, I guess if I were telling like freshman me, if I could speak to freshman me, I think I'd say that it's good that you found a lab early, because that's one of the things that I didn't know how important it was, but I guess it's just something I was excited to start immediately. So in the summer before college, I wouldn't say this is like necessary, because I have basically everyone except me found their lab like sophomore, junior year, and they ended up being fine. But for me, I was really excited to join it as soon as I stepped foot on campus. And so in the summer before school started, I just emailed professors that I'd found on the internet, that on their like Vanderbilt's website, that were doing research that I thought I might be interested in. And so I just sent out a bunch of emails, maybe around 10, but got a pretty good response back. I think I got back like half or six,
Wow.
6 out of 10, which I consider pretty good. And then ended up working in a lab, actually being paid
Wow.
as a
Very rare.
freshman, to work in a lab that was in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. And so I think that was a good first step for me, because I think if it weren't for me like just getting my feet wet in the lab, I think if I'd waited, just knowing me personally, if I'd waited longer, I think I would have been a little bit more hesitant, or double questioning, second guessing myself on whether I should join a lab or which lab to join. But I think me just like putting myself in there just made all of that fear go away. And so in the future, when I ended up not staying in that lab for all 4 years, but in the future looking for a new lab, I was a lot more open to things that maybe I had never tried before. So I think I would tell my freshman self, it's good that you joined a lab early, even if it's not the lab that you might be in for all 4 years.
What are some of the things that you would say, either one or the other, like regret or it was okay?
I think looking back, and I'm sure this is for a lot of people, but looking back, there's so many opportunities that I wish that I'd taken. But these are not academic opportunities. These are more just extracurricular. I don't know if I could handle it, like going back, if I were to tell myself like, join this club, try this. I don't know if I could handle it, but there's a lot of things that even now I'm still just like, oh, what would it have been like if I tried, I don't know, that singing group, or tried a fun knitting club that met. So I think I would tell myself back then like, oh, it's okay to try things outside of academics. But I don't know that I have like serious regrets. I might have like just comforted myself when I was like going through the most stressful times, which was mostly kind of surrounding lab, because I think I was most stressed because I thought I wasn't doing well enough or doing enough. But I think looking back, there's only so much an undergrad can do, especially with like taking a full load of courses. And so I think I would have just told anyone who's like an undergrad and doing research, like, it's okay that you don't have 5 publications by the time you graduate, or even 1 before you graduate. As long as you're putting in your effort and you're learning, and you're able to, learn how the research process goes, even if you're not doing it independently, like doing your own project, as long as you're learning like how they ask the research question, take it from just like a research question to coming up with like experiment design, and then following through with that and making a conclusion, just that whole like cycle, I think is enough for you. If your goal is to go to medical school, I think that's enough.
Oh, good. How did you spend your summers? Because, I think everything that you did contributed to getting into medical school, and, they asked questions of your experiences during the summer.
I think, at least when I was interviewing, a lot of the questions that were asked to me in interviews, it was kind of hard if I hadn't had any experience outside of school to be able to answer. Right. And if you've just done classes, it was partially just the precedent set before me by Matthew about having something every summer. It just felt like the norm to always be doing something that would add to my I guess career, or like going towards medical school. And so it just happened, because I think it is hard for students to find internships just in general. But so I just applied to everything and anything the first year because I knew that as a freshman especially, it's hard to find something. And I ended up getting a internship. Yeah, so bioinformatics was definitely not something I'd done before or I was planning on doing in the future, but it was a very valuable experience to me because medicine is very reliant on bioinformatics right now, and so to be able to be exposed to that, and also at the time I was placed as project manager, so given ownership of something, I think just challenged me to learn and also to adapt in a very completely foreign field. Probably the most important part about internships is that you get to see what work is like in whatever position that you try out for that summer. So for an example, if you try out working in a biotech company, and you find out that you really enjoy it, then you know that, oh, maybe this is some place that I can see myself working after college.
Yeah, long term, right?
Yeah, but in the case for me, it just reaffirmed that, oh, I want to do medicine even more, because even though this stuff is interesting, the most interesting part of it is what medicine is. So I think all my internships reinforce the fact that I wanted to go to medicine, but also built my interest in medicine.
Yeah, and also, side note, working 40 hours a week was another skill that you didn't know that you were learning. I remember first week, not to see you, but even Matthew, after the first week, you guys were so tired and drained. It was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know what 40 hours a week meant, because you guys had jobs before where you worked maybe 10 hours a week or whatnot, but it's definitely something different when you're working 8 hours straight or 9 hours straight with the lunch break, and then working 5 days a week, and not just 1 or 2 weeks, but what did it span? 10, 12 weeks, right? So I think that kind of build up your also staminas.
And also I think it made it more important that I found a career that I was willing to work 40 hours a week. That whatever difficulties or challenges that come with a job, I had to find something that those were worth the profession.
What are you most glad you did that led to med school? The most thing that you think contributed or added, or if it wasn't for this?
It's hard for any student to say this is what got me in, but I think every student has a highlighting element to their application, something that either they were super passionate about or that they spent the most of their time outside of class doing. So for me, that was doing a club outside of school, and I think recommend students who want to do medicine to find a cause or mission that they're very passionate about and hold a leadership position in that area. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you being president of a club, but you just leading. Maybe it's an initiative or just something where you're the leader of that mission or that activity. I think that will not only help you understand what you're fighting for, but also it's looked upon very well in medical school when you're applying, because it shows that you had commitment to whatever you were passionate about, and then also
follow through.
Yeah.
Just to recap, what why we made this video is because you could be going to public school, private school, charter school, and homeschooling, and still, if that is your passion to get into medical school, that it is possible. This is one story of many. I mean, you're not the only homeschooler that made it to med school, but it's just to share her journey and how she got there and what she did to get there. And I think knowing that if you're a homeschooler in middle school or high school and this is your dream, that it is possible, right? Being homeschooled and going there and different paths that she took, and everybody's gonna have a different path, right? I mean, when you're in med school right now, you realize everybody came from such diverse background, not just culturally or racial, but also just their academic, the schooling that they went to, the type of school. It wasn't all top tier, or it wasn't all just lower tier. It was just a very good blend, right? And even when they put you into a little cohort group, they blended it really well so that everybody is from somewhat of a different background and just kind of learn from each other, and you all contribute different, right?
If anything, I think homeschooling gives you a unique background to bring to the group, because likely you will be the only homeschooler or 1 and 2 or whatever.
Yeah. So you have something to contribute as a homeschooler, as they have something to contribute from their background. So, this was a very good talk, and who knows who my next guest will be? Homeschool to college to what school? So, or what career and what field? Possibilities are endless. I think whatever schooling you went into, and it's not any different just because you were homeschooled. So, okay, thank you, Hannah, for joining us.
My pleasure.